Hello and welcome to Introverted Indies. My name is Lydia Baker. I'm co-host with the Lucy McLaren, and I'm here today with Claris Lam. So, Claris, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your books? I know you've got a few out.
Yes. Hi, I'm Claris. I'm a Chinese Canadian indie author and poet, and I have several books out. I have a whole murder mystery series. I've got poetry chapbook, uh, a fantasy short story collection, and most recently a kids fantasy chapter book.
Wow,
So
so
happy
you're
to be able to read.
multi-genre.
Yes, very much so.
Fabulous. So, would you like to tell us, which is your favourite one at the moment, or you just love them all?
I think each of the books have a special place in my heart. I've really enjoyed writing all of them, but I am really especially proud of how my most recent book, the kids chapter book, Sadie Rowe and the Missing Necklace, came out.
So, would you like to tell us a little bit about that one?
Okay. Sadie Rowe and the Missing Necklace is about a girl named Sadie Rowe, hence the title. She lost her grandma's precious necklace and she is trying to find it. And during the search, she meets a fairy named Pearl. And Sadie and Pearl both decide to work together to find the necklace. And they have to learn to trust each other because trust is so key in working together to find what they need. And what happens if that trust falls apart? Will they be able to put it back together again and repair their friendship and their search?
So, what sort of age group is that aimed for?
It's aimed for about like ages 5 to 9.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say, it sounds like something my daughter would like. She's 9. That sort of sounds like her kind of thing. Excellent. And you said you've written like a murder mystery, did you say as well, which is quite different to
Yes,
kids'
that
work.
one is the murder mysteries are written for an adult audience. Uh, there's a lot of murder, and it's called the Harlow Mystery Series, and it's named that because Aubrey Harlow, Harlow being her last name, is the main heroine in that one. She ends up being she's a fan of murder mysteries, and she ends up like investigating mysteries of her own in all three books. So that one was really fun to write.
Yeah. And is it just
Originally,
sorry, carry on, no, carry on.
sorry,
No, go.
originally that series was meant to be about 5 books long, but I ended up shortening it to three because there wasn't enough plot material for 5 books, honestly.
But that's, it's always, I think, better to write three like good books and try and stretch it and make it into something it's not, isn't it? Yeah. I know I've got a crime series that I'm writing, and I find it takes a lot more planning and organizing than I don't know, fantasy or something like that. You have to have so much sort of more structure and planning, I find, for murder mystery than for other genres.
For sure. There is definitely a lot of planning that goes into figuring out who the suspects are, who the actual person behind the crime is, who the red herring is, who people first suspect it is, but isn't.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, I agree. And do you find it, do you prefer writing the crime stuff? Would you prefer writing sort of the children's things?
I think I've found that I enjoy a healthy dose of both. So, for example, in the upcoming young adult fantasy short story collection I have coming out in May, called Found, it's inspired by grim fairy tales. So there are very dark stories being retold here, but they are also stories that have happy endings involved. So it's very fun to play around with those elements.
Yeah. Excellent. So when did you say this one is coming out? Did you say May?
Found will be published on May 18th, 2026, and
Fab, so not long.
pre-orders will be up in early May.
Excellent. So you say it's inspired by grim fairy tales. Is that something that you've sort of read a lot of or sort of researched for this one?
Oh yeah, definitely. I actually took a course on grim fairy tales back in university, and I absolutely loved it because we were just exploring all of the symbolism, discussing what certain themes were going on throughout these stories, and how they've been passed on throughout time to become the current versions that we know. And it's like, considering that Disney had like based so many of their like very older films like Cinderella and so on like Grimm fairy tales, and it's funny to see like the original stories compared to the more sanitized Disney versions that we've grown to know.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't always realize that where these stories have come from, do they? They think they're just sort of a Disney story, but actually the grim ones are, well, grim, aren't they? Some of
Yes.
them. Yeah. Were there some particular Grimm's fairy tales that are in this one that you've based stories on?
Yes, I have. One of my favorites is probably based on the juniper tree. And for those who do not know this one very well, basically it's about a boy, his sister, um, their birth mother dies, and then the new stepmother comes in, obviously, and the stepmother ends up killing the boy and cannibalizing him. And
Oh,
but she does get what she deserves in the end. She does pay for it. There is a
yeah,
happy ending involved there.
excellent. Yeah, so you don't ever expect those sorts of stories. Well, you don't see those on Disney, do you? So
No,
there's never
definitely not.
cannibalism in Cinderella. Oh, excellent. That sounds really interesting. So that's found. And was there any other inspiration sort of behind? I mean, what's your, obviously I know you write different genres, but do you have sort of a main inspiration? What sort of got you into writing?
I would say what got me into writing was I've always been an avid reader growing up, and with that came a lot of imagination, a lot of stories that I just put down on paper, and but I didn't really start taking it seriously until I was partway through university, I would say. And then it grew more serious during the onset of the COVID pandemic because that was when I realized, while stuck at home, I was like, oh, people are dying. I could die anytime. I should probably start writing if I'm ever going to actually write and self-publish books. So that's what I ended up doing.
I think that was a time when a lot of people thought, oh, we've got time, or we're just at home, you know. I think a lot of people did start writing during that sort of period of time.
Sure, definitely. The COVID pandemic was what led me to writing the Harlow Mystery series, actually, because I was just like, I might as well I have the time. I'm stuck indoors. I've got hours and hours on hand. Who knows what's going to happen? Let's see where this goes.
So was the mystery one your first set of novels?
Yes, the Harlow Mystery series was my first set of novels. After that came Refilling the Well, which is my poetry chapbook, and Stay Magical. And then now I have Sadie Row and Found. So yeah, I'll be about 7 books in total.
Oh wow. So how long, so I'm guessing what COVID was 2020,
2020.
wasn't it? So
Yeah.
yeah, so 7 books in 6 years. That's impressive.
Yeah, I started publishing the Harlow Mystery series in 2022. So that was from like 2022 to 2024. And then last year, 2025, was when I published Refilling the Well and Stay Magical.
And do you find it easier to write sort of poetry and things, or do you prefer the? Because I mean, I've never had a go at poetry, but I'm in awe of people who do.
I would say that poetry is much easier for me to draft and edit because I write many short forms of poetry, like a lot of haikus, tanka, really short free verse poetry. So I know that I can get the ideas down a lot faster. But it's also a lot harder to edit because when I'm looking through the revisions, I'm just like, do I want to put this word on this specific line or do I want it on the line before? There are other elements to consider with editing poetry that you wouldn't consider in fiction.
Yeah, that's true. I suppose you don't have to worry necessarily about structure so much in novel writing, whereas structure of sentences and poetry and how it's laid out is a whole nother thing for poetry.
Exactly.
So your poetry book, I have seen it, I have seen the thing. So it's about sort of wellness and self-care.
Yes.
Am I wrong?
Yeah.
All right. Yes, yeah.
Yes. Refilling the Well, when I first wrote it, I was already creatively burnt out, actually. It was during the summer of 2023 where I had this period of burnout. Didn't really write anything for the entire time. It was creatively miserable for me because I'm so used to having so many ideas come up at once, and then all of a sudden I have nothing.
Yeah.
It was literally like a well that had gone dry. And so when I was slowly making my way out of that burnout period, that was when I started drafting, refilling the well, or what would eventually become refilling the well. And yeah, the rest was history. And I realized that I probably was holding myself up to a high standard of, oh, if I'm going to be a professional author, I need to be at like XYZ stage, or I need to be making like this certain amount of sales per year or month or day, like other authors were seemingly doing. And I realized that no, every path for every indie author, especially, is going to be so different for everyone. And what works best for everyone is going to be different to each person.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And it's as hard as it is, you can't compare yourself to other authors because, yeah, like you said, everyone is different and they have, different genres and different marketing available to them. It's just everything is different, isn't it? And yeah, I agree. That's one of the top tips I think I found is not comparing yourself to other authors. And I find the author community, I don't know if you've experienced this, is such a nice place.
Uh,
Everybody's so uplifting and encouraging.
yes, definitely. I'm very blessed been part of, to have been and currently am part of some like writing groups on Discord and like other places on social media and online. So that's been really nice. I'm trying to get more involved with my more local writing groups with mixed success.
Do you find there's much around you? Obviously, I'm in the UK and you're in Canada. I find there's not a lot. There's not a lot of book fairs unless you go sort of up the country or sort of to London, where I am. And there doesn't seem to be many sort of writing groups. Do you find there's much where you are?
There are some writing groups within town where I am. I live in Waterloo. Uh, but often the bigger book fairs and other events will be in places like Toronto or Guelph. And yeah, so they don't really come here. So I just keep pushing, like, oh, I wish more would just stop by here, even if it's
Yeah,
just for a couple of hours, please.
yeah. So I see all these people selling their books, sort of have these lovely stores and things. I think, for me to get to London, it's about an hour on the train. But if you're taking 30 books with you, that's quite a lot to kind of
Yeah.
manage. So, do you have like a sort of a writing process? Tell us a little bit about how you write. Do you have a day where you write, or you do bits in the evenings, or do you sort of structure it? What's your thing?
The way I usually write is I write in my spare time between everything else I do in life. So, say that I have like several meetings going on that day, I will be writing in between the meetings. If I'm waiting for like a cup of tea to boil, I am probably just trying to write down a couple of ideas while waiting. And I found that there's no perfect writing time for me. It's nice when I get the longer stretches of time in between other activities and tasks that need to be done for the day, but sometimes I'm just writing things down here and there. As for the actual like writing process, aside from time management, what happens is that I end up writing a bunch of scenes that I think of for the book, and then I just put them together like puzzle pieces. Except I don't know what the whole puzzle looks like until I finish putting it all together. So it's a bit of a mystery to me while I'm writing.
That's the beauty of it sometimes, isn't it? It's having a plan, but also letting the characters kind of lead as well and surprise you.
Yeah, the characters have definitely surprised me a few times. I would think that, oh, the plot's gonna go in this way, and then all of a sudden the characters just grab the story by the reins and directed it the other way.
It's always the way. Do you have like a favorite character or a character that particularly likes to give you trouble?
This is such a good question. I would say from the Harlow Mystery series in particular, Bastion was one of my favorites to write, but he was also so willing to meddle in things because he was trying his best to support Aubrey because they're both good friends, and throughout all of this, and they're and he's just like, let me help you with investigating like this thing or like if the and like in the first book, when the true culprit was threatening Aubrey's life, Bastion just immediately comes in swinging, egging with like a half-broken bottle of wine, being like, "I will stab you with this if you do not get away from her right now." And
He's a
I'm
strong
just,
character.
yeah, for sure.
And what about the other books? Did you have like one from each book that you particularly enjoyed writing?
I for Stay Magical and Found, I don't know if I had any specific favorites that stood out. For Sadie Rowe and this Missing Necklace, my attention was split between Sadie and Pearl because they both want to get what they want, and sometimes they have conflicts with each other because of that. Because with Sadie, she wants to obviously return her grandma's necklace, but Pearl, meanwhile, she was also helping her as part of trying to become the successor to becoming the next fairy queen. And part of the task also required taking something from the person that she helped. And Pearl thought, oh, I'll just take the necklace from Sadie after I finished finding it with her. And yeah, you can imagine that did not end well.
So you said you've self-published. How did you find that process? I mean, did you try sort of querying, or did you go straight into self-publishing?
With the Harlow Mystery series and refilling the well and Stay Magical, I did immediately go for self-publishing because I knew I could get the books out faster. It was also a matter of creative control for me that was very important. As for Sadie Rowe and the Missing Necklace, I did attempt to query it a few times, but I didn't have any success there. So I immediately just decided, okay, I'll just self-publish it.
So do you prefer, obviously, the self-publishing does, like you said, has the control, and how do you find sort of, because obviously then is all the editing and the marketing and the cover design, and it comes with all sorts of other things. So how
Yeah.
do you sort of go about with all of those things?
Um, my process was basically trying to do everything myself, except for Sadie Rowe and the Missing Necklace, where I realized that there was no way I could do illustrations for a kid's book by myself, let alone do a really, really nice cover in the specific style I wanted. Because Sadie Rowe and the Missing Necklace was inspired by books by Daisy Meadows, the Rainbow Magic series, as well as Gwyneth Ree's Fairy Dust series. And I knew if I wanted the artistic style for that, there was no way that I could achieve it myself. So I ended up working with an illustrator to design the cover and the illustrations for that, and she did an amazing job. I'm so happy with the work she put out for that.
Fantastic. Yeah, it does. I mean, making your own cover is one thing, and I have done it for some of my stuff, but if someone can do it, and it's brilliant, isn't it? Having someone who just gets your idea and can make it. It's always something I wish I could do, but yeah, Canva is, I think, my best friend for covers.
Oh yeah, I use Canva a lot for covers and for making the social media content, especially. It's been really helpful in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And how do you find sort of social media and marketing and all those sorts of things?
At first, I would say with social media and marketing in general, as an author, it can be hard to get yourself seen until you find like the right accounts to collaborate with, or you just figure out and experiment along the way with what posting time works best for you and your readers specifically, because ultimately you are posting on social media to sell your books to your readers and to connect with those readers so they read your works. So it's something that I'm continuously experimenting with to try to find what has worked best, what has gotten the most engagement.
It's a bit of a guessing game, isn't it, with the algorithm and trying to work out what will tick the box and what won't.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I find that if I kind of, if I post something that's got my cat on it, then loads of people will see that. But anything to do with my book, and then it's like five people.
Yeah, I would say that for book marketing, I've learned that you really have to market it in advance and like just have it show up on people's screens so many times that they can't ignore it, so they will actually look at it. And
Yeah.
often that is the case in marketing where they put in general where you have to like show a product like 7 times or more in order for people to be like, okay, fine, I'll look at it. What is this about again? and then maybe they'll actually like your product and get it.
Yeah, so the repetition is key.
Yeah, repetition is key because
Yeah.
ultimately being an author is like it is its own business, and I've learned to like treat it more as such as time has gone on.
Yeah, no, that's something I found is when I first started, I had a 6 month old baby and not really any clue about marketing. I just sort of published a book and hoped that it would do well. But as I've sort of gone on and spent more time, you realize that there's a whole marketing game you have to do beforehand before you even release the book. So, yeah, which takes time. So is there anything else that you sort of would do differently if you could go back to when you first released your books or marketed your books?
Well, I think I would have definitely done way more marketing in advance if I had known if I'd known more about that side of the process at the time. I also probably would have taught myself back then that self-publishing is kind of a long game. It's more of a marathon, not a sprint. I think it's easy for people to assume that, oh, it's easy for you to get your books out there because you're self-publishing it, so you can publish it anytime, and then the money will come rolling in. But no, 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 no. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
You just because you have especially in the beginning, because when you first have like one or two books out, most people are probably not gonna know that you and your books exist. So you really have to make yourself known and seen to be seen by others.
Yeah, no, I find as well. Like, I mean, like you've got sort of 7 books now. Um, the more books you have, I think the more visibility you get, because I think people will see one book. If they like one book, they might then go back and read the other books. That was something someone said to me is that once you've got a back catalogue, that helps.
Yeah, building
We
that
found
back
that.
catalog is important for sure.
I think it was someone like, is it not Dan Brown? No. One of the biggest publishers was saying that, they didn't get picked up till like book 7 or something, and then the rest of their books got picked up. But it's because they then had that back catalogue that they could then sell the rest of them. So if it works for them,
Yeah, exactly. That's why I think so many authors continue to publish so many books regularly because that's how they build their backlist and also that's how they keep up with new readers' expectations and current readers as well.
yeah, no, I agree. So your new book is coming out in May. Do you have anything else in the pipeline? Any other books that you're planning to write or would like to write?
I do have a poetry collection that I'd like to publish next year, 2027. Not entirely sure of the specific release date yet at this time, though. It's a bit early for that. But I also am currently writing two other fantasy books. And I also literally just finished drafting a fantasy novella yesterday. So all of those are hopefully gonna come down the pipeline in the future. Not exactly sure yet of when yet, but hopefully much sooner than later.
Sometimes it's nice just to have things that you can, once you've drafted it, you can put it down and go do something else and go back to it and then work on it and that sort of thing. Nice to have things in the background.
That's for sure. It's nice to have that creative project going to keep exercising your writing muscles.
Yeah.
Yes.
And do you have sort of better readers and people like that that sort of help you with your writing?
I have had beta readers. I've worked with some of them with mixed results. Some of them will I've learned that some beta readers will be much more constructive and helpful than others, and sometimes you have to be aware of which feedback what makes the most sense for you in your writing and which ones you just have to put aside and just accept that some people are going to be critical of those specific elements and you have to live with that.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. You can't please everyone, can you? Like, not everyone is gonna love your book. That's just part of the process, isn't it?
Yeah, that's certainly part of the process for sure.
And I think as an author, you sort of have to develop a sort of thick skin, don't you? Because, some people just won't like it, and that's okay, but others will love it.
Yeah, I've definitely learned that for sure. Or I try not to look at reviews for my books too often because of this, That's because I know that there are some people that will absolutely love it, and that's sweet when you see that. But then there are some people that are just absolutely like not loving it, and you just have to pretend you never saw them to begin with.
Yeah. Otherwise, if you take it too much to heart, then it just stops you wanting to be creative, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So, um, sorry to be on the shorter side of interviews, but guys, could you just tell us where we can get your books and where they're available, and if you've got like a website or anything, so that anyone who's watching can find your books and find you?
Yeah, sure. I my books are all available on Amazon as well as itch.io. They'll also be I also have a website at clarislam.ca. It's pretty easy to find, and yeah, and I also am slowly posting videos about my writing life and the process about that on YouTube. So you can also find me there.
Well, Clarice, thank you so much for coming to talk to me. I'm sorry that it was a shorter interview, but it was great to hear about your books, and hopefully you get lots of book sales.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being able to chat with you about all of this. It's been so fun.
Absolute pleasure. Well, take care.
Take care. Bye.